welcome all back from lunch, full of energy, just right to discuss this very apt topic, building India, building dreams, a right time to build business. So to begin with, I think the definition of building definitely has evolved. It is no longer just about brick and mortar. It is about creating sustainable ecosystems, securing our borders through innovation, and narrating a new identity to the world. So to unpack this, I think we couldn't have had a better panel that represents the perfect intersection of military discipline, corporate scale, and of course academic wisdom. So together we will discuss the current landscape, what it offers, and the ultimate foundation for the next generation of Indian leaders. So welcome, gentlemen. To start off with, of course, the macro view. Is it the right time? As Sunita said, a lot happening. We're practically at war, third world war, we may very sadly call it. So on the macro view, is it the right time? So I'll start with you, Jasbir. Under your leadership, of course, Mahindra Defense executed one of the world's largest integrated emergency management system. So first question is if you could just break it down for us mere mortals to understand what it means. And the second question as a follow-up to that would be, how has the appetite for large-scale indigenous, made-in-India projects changed in the last decade? We just came back from a session where two of Cooper was talking about BrahMos. And if Iran had BrahMos, then apparently none of the, whether it is Israel or US would have even touched it. So that's where we are, and that's how the world talks about India. It's surely a new place for us Indians to be. So I would like your insights on this.
So thank you very much, Rajiv. So it's my pleasure and honor to be here speaking. And just before I start sharing my thoughts, I'll just mention a disclaimer. These are my personal thoughts and not reflecting my organization in any ways. Sharing it for the community. So this the world largest emergency management system, which is being mentioned, is a UP guidance program which was done. If you see the population of UP, 220 million, right? So if this by populous country size, it would have been the 5th country in the world. So they, sometime in 2015-16, they decided that they want to implement a police management program considering addressing the law and order. So they thought of investing almost 5,000 crore over five years, and this includes the manpower, so more than 50,000 policemen to be put on duty 24/7, 5,000 vehicles to be fitted with the best of the technology in the world with mobile data terminal, one command and control center with more than 200 people taking 20,000 plus calls, dispatching police help across state of UP. So that was the size of the project, and generally in Western world, these projects were done like 911 or 112 in Europe. They take 6 months just for testing. And in UP state, they wanted this whole program to be done and rolled out in 6 months. So we got that program. It was one on merit. L&T, Tata were part of it, right? So we got the contract and we implemented it in 6 months. Yes, it took time for almost 6 more months to stabilize it, but this program was fantastic. Just to tell you that earlier, the biggest problem in UP was that nobody was picking up the call. They are calling the police. That was one of the biggest problems. And the second one, if the call is picked up, the police was never used to reach on time. So these two problems were fixed by this program. So anytime, whatever time it is, if you call, the call will be picked up by the police. And the police will reach because everything is in the system. What time the call came, who took the call, when the call was dispatched, the complete chronology of the call till the time police reaches the place was documented. So imagine the biggest thing which we learned or the police department learned during that implementation is that when do you reach to police? So there are many cases, right? If the crime which have happened, but most of the time it was the domestic violence calls which they were the maximum which were coming out. Imagine earlier there was no place in a village if a woman is being beaten by her in-laws or somebody else, there was no way she could go to a thana which is 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers away. But with this system, she could call or her children should call. And once the call is recorded, the police has to go and knock on the door. So it transformed the whole system immediately through that.
And if I may ask, when was this rolled out? Which year?
2016.
So that's a lot of mystery. So have you reviewed it? Has
So we were managing the program for 7-8 years, and somebody else started doing it. And of course, it was the previous government program, and then it was carried forward by the current government. Also, they made a lot of investment. After that, even in Rajasthan, it happened in Maharashtra, where today we are operating it. In across Maharashtra, if you go, there's a dial 112 app, and if you need a police help, you press it on it, the police will reach you. So there's a lot of learning, and these programs started rolling out across the country. So in our country now, there's 112, which is if anywhere or 100 for that matter. If you dial, you will get a police response.
Very interesting. And like I said, the follow-up question: the appetite increasing for large-scale made in India projects changed over the last decade?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm seeing a transformation after COVID more so, right? The Make in India program started sometime in 2014, 15, that time, right? Mr. Modi announced it. But after COVID, I think everybody realized in the defense forces and everywhere else, you have to be Atmanirbhar. And that's where we are seeing the large contracts being given to the private sector also. If you see defense, which is the largest defense manufacturing country in the world? No, the US, right? So the biggest defense industry is in US. And maybe a public sector company in US who's doing defense work. There's none. They're all private companies. So that's the US model. They are all private companies, industry who are making the cutting edge technology in defense, whether it is their missiles or software. And the other model is Israel model, right? So if you see, these are the two largest defense manufacturers. In Israel, you have half, which is public sector companies, and half, which are private sector companies. But the beautiful system in Israel is everything is government. Today, I am working in a private sector. Tomorrow, I can be a secretary of defense in Israel ministry. Or if I'm a secretary of defense, I can start up my own startup because everyone is validated. So we can't follow typically in a US model or an Israel model. We have to come out with an Indian model, which is, of course, you have to coexist with the public sector and private sector. So we are seeing Make in India programs are not being given to the private sector. A lot of innovations can happen.
So, Rajiv, now the next question I would like to ask you. We speak about nation building and ethics. So, in a rush to build business quickly, build in India, how do we ensure that building India stays grounded in human values rather than just profit?
Thank you so much for this question. And there cannot be a better platform and better time to receive or have this question for the reason that I've just finished reading a book called Learning from Tata, Do the Right Thing by Harish Bhatt, and it is about few learnings from Ratan Tata's life. So somewhere in the book, it is said that he was influenced by Jamshedji Tata, who believed in this saying. It says, Humata, Mukta, and Hovarsta. This means good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. There he compared the saying of Lord Buddha that do hear no evil, speak no evil, and do no evil. So it means that instead of not doing bad things, why can't you always live in a culture which is good? Now, if I pick it up from this theory and put it in the business that we all do, and of course, there are a lot of learnings again from the book, and three of them are very important. One says that for building a business, there has to be a purpose. You can't just do a business for profit. Of course, profit is the end goal, and you have to make money at the end of the day. But there has to be a purpose to build your business. There's an example that I have. I want to relate to what my friend Jasbir just said. I was a part of the startup. I was the founding CEO of a startup called One Touch Response. One Touch was an emergency response private setup. And it says that on a click of a button, two people will come to you for your help in case of a situation which is life-threatening. Two people trained on security, fire, and first aid. And we launched the service with full fan and fair. But what we ultimately realized are these two things. And the third is the business lesson. Two things were that when we said that if you have an emergency, let us know. We didn't realize that emergency has no definition. And people used to call us, like you're saying, everyone is calling police. People used to call us, उस साथ वाले घर में ना music तेज बज रहा है मेरे बेटे का बोर्ड का एग्जाम है इट्स एन इमरजेंसी एंड दे यूज्ड टू कॉल अस वो ऊपर जब गमले में पानी दे देना तो मैंने जो अपना तौलिया सुखाया उस पर पानी गिरता दे सेड वी आर डूइंग द पार्टी एट 2 o'clock एंड वी आर हंग्री क्या 6 अंडे भिजवा सकते हैं इमरजेंसी एंड वी डिड नॉट रियलाइज इट What was the purpose? The purpose was that we would give them a help, the emergency response, if they are in emergency. They were in emergency. Now these were the two. This was it was a business mismatch. But what we did not realize was that, and I'm talking about 2013. What we did not realize that they were saying, why don't you become a Zomato? They were saying, why don't you become an urban company? मेरे घर का जो बेडरूम का बाथरूम है उसका नलका खराब है why can't you become an urban company I have lost my document at home but I reached my office can you get me that document why can't you become porter we did not realize that so we had the purpose but we did not listen to the market so even if you have the purpose there is something that market has to tell you so between the purpose and profit listen to the market I think that's the one of the biggest lessons that we have learned. Now, when we learned this lesson, I tried to reuse this learnings in 2020, and I was again a part of another startup called the Fuel Delivery. We realized that in 2013 they said, "Give us anda, give us doodh, give us chabi, give us document." Now it is COVID, and everything is being delivered at home, but not petrol. Why can't we deliver petrol at home? Then we started this company called the Fuel Delivery. Of course, there were regulations, etc., and they said that you can't deliver petrol, but you can deliver diesel. Why can you deliver diesel? Because there are a lot of equipments that use diesel and they cannot come to the petrol pump. For example, Jen said mining machine, road rollers, etc., cranes, etc. So that was a successful business model. What we learned 10 years ago, we used here. It was a failed model. This was a successful. So purpose, profit, listening to the market, and the right time.
Thank you so much. I think that's so very well answered. And Commodore Dr. Srikant Kesnur, because we cannot not ask you this question because you served in the Indian Navy for 36 glorious years. You now focus on maritime awareness through Meluha Maritime. So we've been discussing building India. So do you feel that our business community is sufficiently looking forward to our maritime frontiers as a space for new dreams and commercial expansion? Are we also essentially moving from a nation of job seekers to a nation of job builders?
There are two questions in there. I take the second one, answer that quickly, and then come to the maritime part. Look, all three of you are experts in business and economics. I'm an outlier there. So I'll sort of give you the view from an outsider. Now, I belong to a very small town in Karnataka called Bijapur, not Karnataka. It's like most Indian places was characterized by heat and dust and nothing else. I mean, it had a very glorious history, of course, but that apart. For a long time, you didn't see any energy or dynamism. Now, what is happening? I can perceive over the last, and I'm not making any political statement, 10, 20 years, whatever. You go to the town, there's more buzz, there's energy about what various people want to do. Whether it is small thing like opening a tuition class or something, whether it's business of pickles and chutneys, whether it is more beauty parlors. I mean, that's a kind of business that's booming in small town India now. You know, or aspirational India gyms. I mean, there was. I studied in a Salik school where the only gym and swimming pool was in my school. So all these things when you see, I mean, the 500-kilometer stretch from Bombay to Bijapur was barren. Now you see almost every kilometer or two there are restaurants, there are places you can just peel off on the road. So I feel unemployment remains a distinct problem. But I feel there's lots more when you see buzzing energy, lots more gung-ho optimism. And even in the defense sector, where I go now for corporate jobs or what he says is right, there's much more civil military fusion, academia, private sector, IITs, lot more coming. And I see a lot of young people willing to take risks to develop products. There is also a bit of support from the government and the armed forces. May not be completely the US model, may not even be the Israeli model, but I believe there's lots more optimism now than before for a variety. Now, let me come to the second part of your question, and I'll take from what Rajiv said that when people ask you to deliver diesel at home, I hope they remember that the origin of that is somewhere in Gulf or somewhere in different part of the world, and it transits through some narrow straits where some other agencies have to bring that fuel down to you. Now this is the maritime aspect. We mentioned Zomato and Swiggy. I have always said that the oceans are the original global commons. The oceans are your first version of internet. The word of seafarers is your first social network. The merchant marine is your first version of Swiggy, Zomato, Blinkit. The navies of the world are your first version of antivirus. And the white uniform is your first little black dress. So what I'm trying to say is people must not forget that more than 90% of our trade comes from the ocean. So you have to be maritime aware. Businesses have to be maritime aware because your trade can't happen. I mean, there was a naval admiral who said that lots of Indians go to the beach not to wet their feet but to eat pani puri. So you want a change of that mindset for business too, because for business to be truly, let's say, to understand the world, you must know what's happening on it. And one of the small salutary consequences of the current crisis is that people are actually becoming more aware of what happens with geography and oceans. So that's why I think maritime is important. But again, we have come quite some way. There was a time when this is not a cliche, but there's a time when people actually thought maritime had dealt with marriage. So we've come a long, we've come a long way. We've come a long way from there.
Thank you. So, if we now move towards resilience and leadership in building, and of course, this question I would like to put to Rajiv. Your book, 1000 Days, explores perseverance. For young entrepreneurs starting today, we have, of course, Startup India. What is the story they should be telling themselves when the building process gets tough? You obviously gave us a few mantras in your opening comments, but when they get stuck, what would be your business plan?
Thank you. You referred the book 1000 Days. Thank you for promoting, and I would like to take this opportunity to invite all of you to actually go and buy it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's available at the bookstore. You can have a signed copy.
It's called 1000 Days, the story of a minute. So if you just focus on the name, it says that something happened in a minute that changed 1000 days. And it's a personal experience. And this experience is from a duration which started a few months before the COVID and just ended after a few months after the COVID. Here, I mean, the lessons that I learned, and I must tell you, these 1000 days as my personal experience were really tough for me. And when I wrote that book, it was tougher. But when I read that book after writing, it was so much of fun. So few of the takeaways that I could relate from the book, and I think if I want to convert that, what can I use in business? I think that these are the following points. I would say I learned from my book that every difficult phase is a part of the journey. So if you think everything is easy, building business is easy, there are many entrepreneurs sitting here, one to my extreme right, you can actually ask it's not easy. So stay there, be focused, show up every day. Consistency is another thing. Second is failure is a feedback and not defeat. So if you can't deliver 6 boiled eggs, deliver diesel. One day they will buy it. That could be another learning. And the third, focus on larger dreams. I think one of the greatest examples of focus on larger dreams was, we just saw the first IPL match yesterday and the history of Bangalore team about the IPL. They continued for 16, 17 years before they won the trophy. And so it is not one time. Focus on larger. If it is not happening tomorrow, it may happen next year, maybe next year, or even after next. So most of the young entrepreneurs actually give up so soon, and they give up when they are 99% done. I was one of them when I said, okay, I will not deliver. I will not become a Swiggy. I will only deliver you security, and it did not work. So these are the three things which I mean, there are many, but I think one of the most important things that the young entrepreneurs should actually learn and do is read a lot of books about the people who are successful. That's what I have learned, and I have learned very recently. And that habit is just 5-6 years old, but I'm really enjoying it. I definitely want to promote and advocate that reading books gives you a lot of learning.
Jasbir, if I can ask you this, high stakes security initiatives, complex environments that you work in, but you also come from the Navy. So, one leadership trait from the Navy you find most indispensable when managing profit driven businesses like Mahindra Defense?
So yes, I come from the Navy. I was part of the first crew which went across the world, sail on board a ship called INS Sarangi. And you have lady officers coming now, I think, in the second session, they speak. So in the sailing ship, there was an officer called Dilip Dondo, Commander Dilip Dondo. He Maharashtrian. He became the first Indian to sail across the world.
Close it. Mic close.
Yeah, okay. So he became the first naval officer to sail across the world solo. He trained Commander Vilas Toby, who became the first Indian to do it twice, and then he participated in the sail competitions again. And then you see the lady officers now doing it. So what I'm saying is Navy is an institution which teaches you so much, gives you so much. Today, whatever I am is because of the core values or the system processes which I learned. If I have to come to the one leadership trait which helped me in the corporate world also, is probably the trust building. And because in the forces, you learn to trust your senior, trust your colleague, trust your juniors. But in the corporate, building a trust is very important. Sometimes you get afraid of your boss only because your boss is afraid of you, right? So building a trust is very difficult. So I think I followed the same concept while building a trust with my team while we are doing some work, building a trust with the customer and partner that if we have committed something, we'll deliver it, will not fall back. I think that helped us to build the business and get more business from our customer.
Thank you so much. Commander Kesnur, you've already touched upon maritime thinking essential, especially in today's current times. But is there an example perhaps that you would like to share through your Meluha Maritime that you saw? There's an increasing importance that is now being put to maritime thinking, apart from, of course, the word itself having been misunderstood all these years. Any more anecdotes that you would like to share?
Yes, of course. First, he mentioned Tarini and sailing. And Captain Dilip Donden, sailing teaches you a lot. So we got another very distinguished sailor here in Commodore Dorai Babu. Dorai, you're here? So he's all, and I think he was the skipper of our sailing vessel also. What kind of qualities they bring or Navy brings, we'll probably learn in the next session. And I'm saying that because to me, as a quote-unquote maritime evangelist, these things are important. So, well, Meluha is a small thing. I mean, it's a recent company. But what I liked was a lot of people asking curiously, what does this Meluha stand for? And when you tell them that there's an ancient name for India given by seafarers from across the Arabian Sea, from those who are in Oman and Persia and all that this is an ancient name with a maritime link. So the automatic curiosity. So to that extent, of course, I think on Lit Fest like this, all these are little, what you say, breadcrumbs that probably will lead us to thinking larger in maritime. But we must remember one thing. Yesterday talking to a couple of journalists, when people, for example, go from Bombay to Delhi, change happens from the seas to the hills or mountains very quickly. So there has to be some way we have to constantly focus on the maritime from the earliest times in our education. For example, and I've got nothing against SL1, but should children, instead of going on a picnic to SL1, why they go out on a fishing trip out into the sea? Why don't they go on these little rafts? Why don't they do more water sport? He mentioned the IPL, and I'm a great cricket fan. But why can't water transport be as much a part of Mumbai as land transport? So there are a million ways in which the maritime can manifest itself. And it is there. All of Mumbai's architecture it is there. Our like Marine Drive is maritime. Marine Lines is maritime. Okay. Bandar is maritime. But we don't seem to bring that enough to the forefront of our consciousness. So companies like mine do are intent to just a small part of the journey. But I think largely the good part is that I think the world has come to realize that navies and merchant navies have a much larger role to play. We were called the silent service for long. We are not seen beyond what happens beyond the horizon. I must tell you since we're talking of business and entrepreneurs, I must tell you of a couple of very interesting, if I have 30 seconds more, couple of very interesting
30
incidents.
seconds.
30 seconds, yes. I'll keep it to 30 seconds. The man who designed some of the best warships in India also designed the TVS Scooty. It sort of worked in tier 2 towns for Maruti 800 to women in big cities. And he often talks about how he's more known for TVS Scooty than for the warships he designed, Captain Mohan Rao. So it's a wonderful way of how the corporate and the maritime segue. In the last 10 seconds, we will leave this for question and answer. I will ask some of you, or tell many of you, that if today you are using the smartphone in its best way, it is courtesy Indian Navy officer. So we'll leave that for the Q&A.
Okay, great. I'm sure everybody look forward to that. Before we conclude, another topic that I would like to touch upon is bridging the gap, the education to industry. So, Dr. Rajiv Mathur, you are a professor of practice. You bridge this gap between theory and the real world. So, one more thing in our education system, which is still missing to truly prepare the students to build dreams, build India.
Thank you. So all three different questions that that are coming to me. So I'm of course in the corporate world, but I teach for the last 21 years to management students, and my disconnect with the education, I would say protest is that I represent the security company, and my protest to the education ecosystem is that till very recently there is no formal education in the security, in the physical security domain. If any one of you is aware that only very recently 2 universities which are dedicated teaching security. About 20 years ago, there was a management institute called Aravali Institute of Management in Jodhpur, and they started teaching security management as a curriculum to the management students. But even today, back in our times, as we were discussing a while ago, there were 3-4 specialization in management. Finance, marketing, and HR. There are 37 today, and I have been actually trying to write to multiple universities for the last 4 years that they should have security in one of the subjects, and if they can have specialization in security. So the first point that I want to say is that they have, again, what I said earlier. Even the education ecosystem has to understand that this is a demand that the industry is asking to actually have a formal education in the security. That's point number one. Point two is that there should be more. When I go and teach in management institutes, I really find that they are very bookish even today. There is no real world exposure to them, and they are one of the universities actually invited me to speak on two very different subjects. Two different universities on two very different subjects, and I had to really prepare for them. One of them is that please come and tell the students what is the industry expectation from them. I asked the students, management students who are about to take a job in next 3 months, 4 months time. So I asked them, what do you think that the industry expects from you? They said we should be good in finance, we should be good in marketing, and we should be good in HR space. I said that's given, that's understood, that's for granted that you should know all this. So that's one. They are not. That's my understanding, and I may be completely wrong. But what I generally feel that there has to be more exposure. There is the other side of this fact is. So sometimes when you actually have a guest lecturer or a guest faculty coming to your university, the half of the class is actually not in the class. They are not interested in what the industry is saying. So that understanding that if you have a visiting faculty coming all the way leaving his business hours and coming to talk to you, you must take that session and understand and learn from that. So connecting to the real world is my first point that which is currently missing. Second, I think students are always told theoretically to take it easy. They should be encouraged to take risks. They are not encouraged. The education system does not tell them कि करो यार जो भी होगा देखी जाएगी. So that's very important for them to know कि if I will again relate if the customer is saying कि share the little bill, let's see, you can become a Swiggy or a Zomato one day. So taking risks is the second point, and the third most important is, and again it's very similar to what I said in the beginning, is that they should actually learn that what is the value that they are adding to the businesses, to the organization that they are going. They understand, as I said, they said, I'm good in marketing, so marketing. I mean, that's fine, that's doable. Everybody is doing it. What is it extra that you are doing it? This is something that the students of today, especially the management students, are missing. It is. They should be actually prepared to start working, not prepare after they get the job and then start, get yourself trained to the job. So they should be trained before they actually take the job. I was, as a part of my career, I used to work with a company called Ceasefire. Most of you are aware, and I was being interviewed then to become a territory manager in 6-7 years of my career. And at that time, we used to have an interview to be promoted. And my manager said that it's an old saying, but it stuck with, since then. He said, if you want to become a manager tomorrow, start acting like one today. It's not that मैं कल manager बनूंगा तो manager की तरह से काम करूंगा. So if you are capable of functioning like a manager today, then only you can become a manager tomorrow. So that's something which our education system, from the time they are leaving the classroom, they should learn that this is what they have to do there, not they have to learn there. So these are three things that I think should be they are really important for the education ecosystem to understand and implement.
Great. I think before we get onto the Q&A and before our rapid fire question, one thing I would like to know from Jasbir, you've attended many executive programs at Harvard and Ross. For the benefit of our audience here, one strategic thinking for millions of small-scale entrepreneurs across India that you think that you learned at these programs and you would like to share.
Can I add to Rajiv's point?
Yeah.
So I think what we are missing in the student academia and industry gap is also fear of failure, which you said rightly. This fear of failure is the most important thing, I think, which in our mindset it has to change. And this I have learned in Israel. They have for startup, they have a failure club. In the failure club, every Friday they come together and the founders share the failure he has faced and they celebrate it. Because every failure leads you to the next success, right? So that mindset change we have to bring here. And in academia, we always see that, the good people who are in the industry, they don't go to the academia. So there's a lot of theory which is there. That I think has to change. And this is what I learned in practical, whether you go to any foreign university. Most of the professors are people who are practicing professors, or they go and interact or work with the industry. So they bring in a knowledge or expertise which is right from the ground, right? So when you're listening to them, you are listening to the real case studies. And those case studies, if you apply in any environment, it doesn't matter if it is India or US or Europe. So those case studies, grasping them is very important. And how we can make use of it for India is now, with AI coming in, I believe the education will be open for all today. And the more use of our entrepreneurs make use of this AI educations, these books are all available now. The research is available. You have applications which will do the research work for you for 100 of days just in 10 minutes. So that's something which I think India is grasping very well, and that's what you see now. That in defense sector, a lot of startups are coming up and they are doing a product development rather than just copying some solution and implementing in India. They are doing real R&D in India, which is producing some of the world-class products.
Great, thank you so much. And before I open this panel to question and answers, I need to ask you a rapid fire question because it's a little fast. We have to have some masala in it. Commander Kesnur, if I may start in one sentence, and this is a question to the other panelists as well. What is the biggest dream you have for India by 2030?
2030 is kind of day after tomorrow. So,
Yes.
so no lofty dreams, but I just think from what they said, somehow if we can fix our education system, and I'm talking of primary and secondary. I've been fortunate, small town. You just came up because of good education. I think while what they said is correct, if we can fix our primary and secondary and spread it more, that'll be the best way to go. So fix our education system. May not be 2030, maybe 20 years after that.
Dr. Rajiv, your take.
I think something to add here. I would say that I hope and seriously wish that industry, academia, and governance one day should actually not only talk on the stage but work together as well.
Academy?
Industry and governance.
Great. I think that's great.
I believe by 2030 will be at least number 2 or number 3 in the world in defense production.
Fantastic. Great. That's a dream or a reality?
Probably will become a reality. Just dream as of now.
Oh, great, great. So, Meeta, we have 10 minutes for questions.
So, Mathur, you were spoken about how the academia and the education system needs to improve. So, do you think it is also going to be a product of what organizations are asking for or demanding for? Because you may do vocational studies, but when you go for a job, nobody's picking you up because they're not an MBA, marketing or finance, HR. So, don't you think that it is the organizations with India moving towards a more service kind of an industry and service industry being one of the major contributors also? So, don't you think it is important that these industries come together to create vocations that, like you said, you spoke about security. So, don't you think it is that responsibility also with the corporates, lies with the corporates, where they should actually, help create an education system which ultimately creates jobs for vocations, different colleges.
Thank you. And I will give you an example of security, and I can guarantee there are at least two people in the hall. They will agree with me. At least two. There could be more. And I'll stick to security. So currently in the security, and I'm talking about physical security. Physical security, the people who actually manage guard. Let's stick to very basics. People who manage guard, or security officers or managers or security leaders in the corporates, etc. There is no education today. When I get into security, there was no education. There are exceptions like Jasbir and Pawan and other people sitting here who have the defense background. But for a civilian background, there was no education. There is no education even today. So what happened about 20 years ago, maybe more, there is something called ASIS, American Society of Industrial Security. They used to conduct an examination called CPP, Certified Protection Professional. When I attempted it in 2001, I didn't understand 80% of it because it was all about American law, American security, etc. etc. But they gradually shifted then what is important for different regions, for India, etc. They finally made a India board maybe last year or last year. In 20 years, they realized that India as a security industry need an education system which is relevant to the industries. Still, we do not have such education even today. Couple of universities, as I mentioned, like NFSG, National Forensic Science University, or RRU, Rashtriya Raksha University, they are now actually coming up with courses on homeland security, industrial security, policing, etc., forensics, criminology, etc. But they're doing it, and there is huge demand. There are at least 20,000 such vacancies every year, and the industry is actually putting up this demand to the education ecosystem, and that's why people like us actually go and teach in such universities. And I'm sure this is happening in other industries as well. We were talking, and as I just mentioned, that we had MBAs in only 3 specializations 25, 30 years ago. There are 37 today, specialized healthcare, hospital management, operations. There is specialization in everything, but not security. So I'm sure if industry demands to the corporate, and that's why I said industry, academia, and governance. So when I go to the university as an industry and I say, why don't you have this code? They say UGC doesn't give us permission. Likewise, there could be other industries as well, but industry has to give the input and the governance has to actually set the curriculum right to match that. Industry has a demand. Definitely industry has a demand.
Good afternoon. Thanks. It's a connected question that I have. I have heard from all of you saying that whatever is being taught today is largely theoretical and there is lack of practical input. Same is the complaint that most of the students make, that they are not industry ready when they go out of their colleges. My counterpoint is, are we confusing education and training? Are we, because my feeling is that you can never change the first principles. When you're learning something, even if it is management, Jasbir said that he learned his principles of management on a sailing boat. Right? Those are the first principles of management, and that was not because he's doing something completely different. And therefore, if we are only going to look into vocational training, are we going to create more employees? And in case we are going back to first principles, are we going to create more creators? This is a question that we need to ask. And is there a case then that maybe you might have to extend the amount of education that is being provided so as to incorporate training into it, but do not reduce the first principle education? And that is an important point which students don't seem to be understanding.
And if we bring up the question.
My question is more related to only Mumbai, can't really think of all of India. But specifically, if you have to really build dreams, because I've been in the entrepreneurship sector for the last 15, 18 years, if you really have to build dreams, going by your example, we are killing the micro enterprises in Mumbai. If you go to BKC, where are the small, enterprises? They're all gone. And if you don't actually encourage micro enterprises, where are you going to get the next generation big corporates? Because, somewhere, the compliance and the laws, are just made for the big guys. And the big guys have it easy, actually. I'm very frank in saying that the big guys can contact a politician, can lobby, can advocate, can push money. There's no end to what the big guys can do and get the thing done. But the small guys really are killed by compliance in the first 2 to 3 years of business. And that's why India is really suffering because, if you're not going to get micro enterprises, you're not going to get, dreams.
My question is, with the introduction of artificial intelligence, how one must, balance the optimum utilization of manpower with the upgradation of technology, and then how do we negotiate the change and what role government has to play here? Thank you.
I think it will be too less a time for us to answer all, but Jasbir, if you want to quickly take.
So I'll take the AI one.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting subject, right? AI, lots will change, lot has already changed. And it is a wave, right? There have been technology waves coming in. So this, I think we will be prepared to ride. Government will play its own role. But it's a fundamental shift. It's a shift which will increase the capacity. It's like internet came, people thought they'll lose their job. No, internet open up doors for something more. So AI will open door for many things. I think probably the education, in my opinion, institutions will go away. People can study on their own, use AI applications, develop whichever field they want to do. All these Harvard Ross, they will become irrelevant, in my opinion, in next 10 years.
And now micro enterprises.
Not a micro enterprise. What Ashish said, micro you can think. So I tend to agree with what Ashish said, but I think this has been this age-old dilemma between what we say is education and training. The industry needs a certain level of skills and they're not skill oriented, whereas there is a belief amongst a lot of people that for you to be a good human being, society, you need a more broad-based education. So I believe, of course, one part of it is if we address the primary and secondary well, then at the undergraduate and subsequent you can make those divisions. Second point, Ashish, I believe actually in some cases the problem is whether it is education or training. There is a kind of mediocrity in our education system. So that needs to be attacked much more. Fraud through the academia for a long time. there's huge amount of mediocrity there. So whether training or education, we need to get that right, and then that's my opinion.
Thank you. And to answer your question, I agree. First of all, what you are saying that yes, there are. I mean, we have a phenomena called ease of doing business, but it's just a phenomena like Make in India. I'll narrate another very small story. And we were in a conference yesterday. There was this young boy who just finished his IIT. 10 seconds. Yesterday, he's just finished his IIT last year. They are building a startup, and it's called Navigate. Navigate. I will charge royalty to promote him. And he's saying, Ola, Uber, drive you, this, that, you're not doing a good service, I am. And he's just picking up the flaws of those services and saying, this is a marketplace, let's build something over and above all this. So there are youngsters who are actually taking this, they're challenging Olas and Ubers of the world. And but coming to the compliances, etc., it is taking time. But if you actually keep pursuing what you actually want to do, success will definitely knock your door one day.
So I think if we can conclude, I think to answer the question, is it the right time to build? I think definitely yes, right time to build, but build with purpose. I think that is a conclusion that we can all take away today. Thank you so much.